I'm L.A. Chung, local editor for Los Altos Patch. Welcome to Patchcast.
Hi, I'm Claudia Cruz, editor of Mountain View Patch, and welcome to Patchcast. Patch is a network of more than 800 news and information sites across the country. Here in the Bay Area, Patchcast brings you news from the communities of Mountain View, Los Altos, and Cupertino.
For Los Altos News, I'd like to lead today about the incidence of West Nile virus disease. Across the country, the cases have been spiking. However, in Santa Clara County, we've talked to local officials with vector control, and we found that actually Santa Clara County is having a very mild year. And we can pat ourselves back for that. Part of the reason, we were told by Jose Colome, who's one of the public information officers at Vector Control in Santa Clara County. Local residents have been particularly active in reporting cases of dead birds or dead squirrels. That allows Vector Control to go out and put out traps to look for mosquitoes that have West Nile virus. If that is the case, then they set up an operation to either do a fogging or a spraying. The choice has usually been fogging, where they use very, very minute amounts of a particular poison that is very effective against the mosquitoes carrying West Nile virus. It's very important, they say, to knock down these mosquitoes at this point, because at that point they can transmit it to human beings. West Nile virus, for most people, is really experienced as a flu-like symptoms that you can have, but for some people it can escalate much more severely and you can even die. In California, there were 34 cases and one death of an 84-year-old woman in Southern California. So far here in Santa Clara County, there has been only one, what they call fogging campaign. There has been one case where they found active cases of West Nile virus in mosquitoes, and that was in the Los Altos, Mountain View area. They fogged in early August in a 1-mile radius in the 94024 and the 94040 areas, and have reported that they did not find any cases of infected mosquitoes after the fogging. And that is the only one that they've had this year so far. Last year they had 4. Elsewhere in the state, however, in Southern California and Central Valley, they've had far more incidences, and usually they have to fog at least 3 times. So we can pat ourselves on the back for that. The county encourages everyone to continue to use the website to report dead animals, usually dead squirrels and dead birds, and they can send someone out to do some testing in that area, and also to pick up the dead bird and the dead squirrels. We have tips on our website, and if you go to Los Altos Patch, Mountain View Patch, or any of our patches in the Santa Clara County, you'll see what our tips are. Some of these are pretty common sense, but you should wear long sleeves if you go out in the early morning or in the late afternoon when mosquitoes are active, or try to avoid being out at all during that period of time, because that's when they're active. And to be sure to report cases of standing water in your neighborhood. This includes neglected pools. So if you've been in an area where there have been foreclosures and you have some vacancies in your neighborhood, but there are swimming pools in the backyard, certainly be on the lookout. We don't do a lot of police news on Los Altos Patch. Most cases are pretty mild, but we thought we'd tell you about one case this week. On Monday, August 20th, there was a 2-car accident on Foothill Expressway near Arboretum Drive in South Los Altos at 7:59 a.m. Now, very often there are cases where we have what they call an accident, no injuries, but this one was very unusual. This involved a Los Altos Police Department patrol car. We don't know exactly what happened, but the patrol car and another vehicle were involved in an accident, tied up traffic at 7:59 a.m. and after that for quite a while. And the case is being investigated by the Santa Clara County Sheriff's Department. 2 people were taken to the hospital, and as we understand from the Sheriff's Department, they were released shortly afterwards, so the injuries were mild. We'll keep you updated on this case. At the Santa Clara County Board of Education, we do have a new County Office of Education superintendent. His name is Javier de la Torre, and he took over in July. In other news, at the County Board of Education, Trustee Craig Mann stepped down from his position on Ward 6. Now, Craig Mann is not a trustee in the area covering Los Altos, Mountain View, or Cupertino. But one area he has been active in has been encouraging charter schools, and for that he's been highly praised by the new superintendent. Mr. Mann, however, ruffled a lot of feathers in Los Altos when parents who had been seeking more input into the memorandum of understanding between Bullis Charter School and the Santa Clara County Office of Education, because he had said that he didn't want to spend any time refereeing the differences between the parents who were in the district and the parents who run the Bullis Charter School. He also ruffled feathers later on last spring when he said that a lot of the concerns that the parents had written about from the district were quote-unquote manufactured rage. He explained those feelings at one point and saying he had used it as a shorthand and that he hadn't really meant to say that all this was made up. But at the same time, a lot of parents felt that he was particularly unfriendly to their particular concerns. Mr. Mann, in stepping down from the trustees, has done so because he is taking a job as a middle school teacher in one of the districts in the county. Since you cannot be a trustee of the same county that you're working in as a school district employee, Mr. Mann had to step down under the rules that govern the Board of Education. He will, however, still be in the public eye, we think, because at least through the election period, because he has filed to run for trustee at the Evergreen Community College District. So expect to see more this fall. Today we have a special guest with us. You've seen her in the past. Her name is Crystal Tai, and she has started out as a contributor to Cupertino Patch, but we have run many of her articles as well in Los Altos Patch and in Mountain View Patch. Crystal is an amateur gourmet cook at home, and she has written a column about sort of fusion Chinese California cuisine. But I'll let Crystal talk a little bit about her column. Crystal, welcome.
Thank you, Lisa. My column is called Crystal's Chinese Californian Cuisine. It's Chinese food with a Californian twist, which means it's healthier. I use less salt and less oil, but more spices. So my dishes are still flavorful, but are healthier than most Chinese dishes.
Today we wanted to talk a little bit about ingredients, standard ingredients that you want to have in your pantry. This is like everyday cooking. Say you, a lot of times we do when we set out to make a dish that we haven't done before. We get the recipe, we look at all the ingredients, we go to the store, we make a special trip, etc., etc., etc. But what if you just want to cook what you have in your refrigerator, or you're thinking of going out to get a cut of meat that you want to eat, but you just have the ingredients in your pantry and you want to throw it together. Crystal wants to talk a little bit about some ingredients that you should have in your pantry if you want to try to cook Chinese. And it's not that hard, and there are some surprising ingredients here that you probably already have in your pantry. So the first thing we're going to talk about is marinades. Is that right? Because
Yes.
The Chinese approach is to always marinate your meat before you cook it?
Definitely.
Okay, so what do we have?
We have ginger and garlic. I always marinate meat with rice wine, ginger, and garlic. When I don't have time to go to the market to pick up ginger or garlic, I'll just use these, which are always in my pantry, ground ginger and garlic powder.
So tell me what you do with the ground ginger and the garlic powder. How do you apply them?
Well, I will soak meat in rice wine, and then I'll sprinkle garlic powder and the ground ginger all over the meat. I will stir and make sure the powder is evenly attributed, and then I'll let it sit for about 15 to 20 minutes.
How do you cook the meat after that?
Any way you want.
Okay, that sounds good to me. The next ingredient is something that's very familiar to our kitchens, and I usually use it for baking, but what do you do with this?
Well, cinnamon powder is one of the 5 spices the Chinese use for the stew. And actually, when you don't have the other 4 spices, cinnamon will do. Cinnamon is actually the main spice of the 5. So if you just have cinnamon powder, you can make a stew. You can use it with soy sauce to make a Chinese stew. It especially works well with beef.
So once again, do you just sprinkle this in? How do you do this?
I will make a beef stew with soy sauce, and I mix in cinnamon powder, and basically you can put it in a slow cooker and set it 4 hours or 8 hours, depending if it's like 4 hours on high heat or 8 hours on low heat, and then you'll do its own job. And sometimes I will cook some peanuts first. I will boil peanuts. And when the peanuts get really soft, I will make my beef stew with peanuts, soy sauce, and cinnamon powder.
That sounds really great. The next ingredient is also something very familiar to our kitchens, but we usually think of it for Italian cooking.
Yeah, when you see basil, you think Italian or Thai, but actually basil is an often used spice in Taiwan too, and Taiwanese are ethnically Chinese. In Taiwanese cuisine, there's a famous dish called the 3-cup chicken, and you use basil in 3-cup chicken. The 3 cups are a cup of rice wine, a cup of soy sauce, and a cup of sesame oil. You simmer your chicken with the 3 cups of sauces, and then when it's simmering, you add basil.
Do you just sprinkle a little?
Yeah,
or
you just sprinkle it all over.
Okay, that's something new. Can you tell me something else about how you use the basil besides the 3-cup chicken?
I stir-fry eggplants with basil. I scramble eggs with basil. I also put basil in my fried rice, whether it's Thai fried rice or Chinese-style fried rice. When I add basil to my Chinese-style fried rice, it's like Chinese and Thai fusion.
That sounds really good too. The last ingredient you have here is something that's a little bit more special. Tell me about this.
This is oyster sauce. I like it better than soy sauce. It's more flavorful and it gives you less sodium.
So what do you do with that?
This is a great salad dressing. You can put it on your cucumber salad. You can also stir fry asparagus or broccoli with oyster sauce.
That's making me really hungry. Now, there's one ingredient that we didn't show here, and that's the rice wine. So you tell people a little bit about rice wine?
Rice wine is available in every Chinese market. You can just go there and you will see different brands, and don't be intimidated. They're pretty much all the same. Just cooking wine. If you don't use rice wine, you use cooking wine, that's fine too. If you're just used to your own cooking wine, it works pretty much the same.
So actually, we can in a pinch we can use whatever cooking wine we have in our own kitchen pantry. And as far as oyster sauce, you can't replace that. So
Right.
Got to make a trip to the Chinese market for that one. Ranch 99, a Marina, or one of those. Is that correct?
Sure.
And you said that you don't really have to worry about brands.
Right. Cooking wine is cooking wine.
And oyster sauce is oyster sauce?
Yeah, I think so.
Thank you very much, Crystal.
Sure. Thank you.
Also in election news, this is going to be a hot year for both Los Altos and Los Altos Hills. There are open races in the Los Altos City Council and also at the Los Altos School District. So watch Los Altos Patch for news about upcoming candidate forums because there's a real race going on. And that's all from Los Altos Patch today. Thank you.
the Santa Clara County Vector Control District scheduled a mosquito spraying in the Palo Alto Baylands recently. The spraying was meant to control the population of a summer salt marsh mosquito that is not known to carry any strains of the West Nile virus. However, the mosquitoes are known to have a vicious bite. We know mosquitoes like to bite already, but this one, according to the county, it's a very uncomfortable type of swelling that would occur. And also these type of mosquitoes can travel up to 5 miles from their breeding grounds, which means that the areas of Palo Alto, Baylands, Palo Alto, North Palo Alto, Mountain View, in the areas of shoreline parks, shoreline golf links, where the campuses of some of these technology companies are, and just the areas possibly right across 101 could have been affected by this particular mosquito. We will bring you more information after the spraying and let you know how successful the county was in its efforts. Mountain View Patch also attended at Moffett Field a community covenant field day. The goal of this community covenant field day was to encourage people, agencies in the general Bay Area community to interact more and to teach residents of Moffett Field, the military families who live there and work there, about the different things that are available to them as far as maybe social service agencies, support groups, and the such. Here are a couple of interviews that Mountain View Patch took while at the event last week.
What brought this about is Moffett Field as a military community is very unusual in that there are all branches of service involved here. Normally at a military base, it's controlled by one branch of service, and there is support that's provided for those men and women. Because Moffett Field is different from a normal base, there is not a lot of support for individuals. In other words, individuals are detached from their parent unit rather than being attached to a unit. So Carol Ann and I, who's the commander of the 881 American Legion Post, we've been talking about ways to get the community involved, and we heard about the signing of a covenant in San Francisco, and just thought that this would be a good idea for this community.
And what kind of services do military families in Mountain View need so that they so this event tries to help fulfill?
Well, as you know, we're in Silicon Valley. It's a very expensive place, so often for families, particularly those who may have a family member deployed, they may run into financial difficulty. And so from time to time there is a need for assistance financially. But greater than that, there is a need just to support the family as they are experiencing some stresses related to their family member being deployed. And so having individuals outside of the community and feeling welcomed into the community is certainly something that we are trying to obtain. So they just need a lot of support, family members. And then when those service persons come back from deployment, it is good to have something in place for those individuals as they return.
What kind of outreach into Moffett or from Moffett out is done, again, to help bring services to the families or help them in I guess, surpass some of the economic burdens of living in Silicon Valley?
Okay, well, the Post 881, it was put together to address the needs of contemporary warriors. And so what we are trying to do is to partner with local businesses and corporations to let them know, number one, that people are here, so that when there is a need, we can go to those individual corporations and ask for assistance as needed.
How many people live on Moffett, in Moffett?
There are actually two communities. There are 190 housing units within the gate, inside the gate, which is called Westco. And then outside of the gate, on the corner of Moffett and Littlefield, there is a community called Shenandoah, and there are 120 some units over there. So it's over 300 family units here.
And that's a unit, which means that there's maybe 1,000 people, a mom or dad and one or two kids or something?
Absolutely. And in addition to just the community itself, right outside of the gate, you have the 63rd Army Regional Command, which is commanded by a two-star general. And they have, I think, around 1,200 employees. That number may be off, but they have a lot of military employees, and they have a lot of civilian employees. Some of those employees are retired. Plus, you have the MEP station, which is right over by the Navy Lodge. And the MEP station houses Army, Navy, Marine Corps. And the Marine Corps itself, they have over close to 100 recruiters within the California area. So these are individuals. Some of them live within the community, but many of them live outside of the base.
So the military presence in this area, I mean, between Mountain View and Moffett is very large.
It's very large. And the thing about it is there are many people who don't know that this space is still active. I often tell people where I live, because I live within the community, and they say, "Oh, there are people out there." Many people don't even know that it's active, because this was one of the bases that was slated to be closed, but because of the needs, it is still here.
It was a solemn Saturday afternoon, August 18th at St. Francis High School, when the Manukian family said goodbye to their son, Marine Captain Matthew Patrick Manukian, who was killed in Afghanistan on August 10th by an Afghan police officer. There were more than 2,000 people packed into the St. Francis High School gym, and there was not a dry eye in sight, and there was also a lot of light moments with laughter and remembrances of who Captain Manukian was, both as a member of the Marine Corps and how hard he worked in trying to stabilize villages in both Iraq and Afghanistan, but also who he was as a person, the love of his family, his love of his dog, his friends of St. Francis, his future goals and dreams. And if you have a chance to go on the site, we also have several articles on this as part of the series, but we also have a short video of provided to Patch by the Manukian family of the service. And here it is. The Mountain View Community Services Division and Recreation departments are looking for your help. Last year, the City of Mountain View acquired the Rock Church property across the street from the Senior Center on Escuela Avenue, and that new property has been designated the new Teen Center. The previous one located across the street called The House, it's actually too small for the number of teens in the community who could be using it. Actually, it's actually not a teen house, it's actually a middle school house because most of the people who are really allowed to hang out there were middle schoolers. But now across the street at the Rock Church site, the teen center will open up. And the City of Mountain View is asking for the city's help and teenagers' help in particular to help name the new center. So check out Mountain View Patch for more information. The city has a SurveyMonkey website where you can go and contribute names, and there will be a lucky name drawn. And how cool is that? That your name could be on the building for the rest of its useful life here in Mountain View. So check out Mountain View Patch for more information. Thank you to the staff and crew of KMVT for another week of helping us to bring you what's happening in the South Bay. We'll see you next week.